A frigid month like January could lead you sliding down a slippery slope into a financial ice storm. There's no way you're going to want to miss this.
Hey guys, I'm Blake Buttram. This is Matt Minton. We're with Arkansas Retirement and Wealth, and thank you for joining us today for our January market report. I know we're a little bit late on it. It seems like the calendar's just gotten away from it, but we're going to kind of hit the topics that we think that would be most interesting to all of you and what we've been hearing throughout appointments over the last month or so.
Yeah. Well, we'll start it off with, President Trump has been floating around a nomination as the new chairman of the Federal Reserve. And Blake and I were just talking about this. I've been kind of shouting from the rooftops about that come May, we're likely going to see a very quick decline in interest rates. And then Blake mentioned that this gentleman has been kind of hawkish.
Yeah, that was the word out there.
On the interest rates. And so, we just have to be kind of cautiously optimistic. There are some of you listening to this right now, probably some of you are going, yes, lower the interest rates. I want to buy a different house. I want to do this. And some of you are going, I'm kind of liking these 4 and 5% rates that I'm getting on my low risk money. So why would I want the interest rates to be lowered? Basically, I think right now we're still in kind of a get it while you can atmosphere. I was talking to somebody this morning, and he was mentioning that his risk profile usually wasn't the type that would have a whole lot of lower risk money. But he said, man, if I can get a chance at making 8 or 9%, I can lower my risk a little bit for that.
Yeah. So, why take the additional risk when you don't want to?
Yeah. If you can meet your goals with that. So right now, Blake and I have been kind of working with people and trying to take advantage of that, because who knows? Come May, maybe he will begin lowering the interest rates, or maybe they stay the same for a while. But no doubt we need to plan for the worst, hope for the best, and plan for the worst.
I don't think they're going up, is my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
So yeah. So the next thing, the S&P 500, which most people consider, the barometer of the stock market, it's near an all-time high again, near 7,000 points. I think right before we walked in here, it was like 6980 something. So flirting with a new record again. Who knows? People ask us all the time, well, is the market gonna keep on going? And I'll never forget, I heard this guy say about a month ago, well, it'll go up as long as it doesn't go down. And I thought, that's pretty wise, because who knows? Who knows? I think everybody out there has a different opinion on what's making it go up, when it's going to go down. Like Matt just said, we just gotta plan for the plan for the worst, but hope for the best. So,
what if it stays the same?
Yeah, what if it stays the same? Yeah. I mean, it's a crazy time. I think my personal opinion is there's a lot more volatility ahead of us. I don't know what your opinion is, but
yeah. Going back to that, we had a little bit of a market run up in January, and then around the 20th we had this big sell off. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to get political. I'm just quoting somebody, but the senator from Louisiana, his exact quote was, love him or hate him, our president exists loudly. And like I said, I'm not being political, but love him or hate him, that's the truth. And January 20th was one of those times where his loud existence, sometimes that affects the markets. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the things that he says they don't like. So, I do expect that we probably will have a somewhat turbulent year. We don't know that. We can't guarantee that, but I'm certainly would not be shocked to see a pretty high level of volatility this year. I mean, like I said, we saw it in January. Mm-hmm. It was a pretty good spill there for a while, and then the next day the news is different, and now everybody's happy again.
Yeah, everybody, it's all forgotten. So
it's all, what have you done for me lately?
Exactly. So in that same line of thinking is cryptocurrency. Everybody's heard of cryptocurrency. I have had clients asking me about that, and these are people that the last people that I would have ever thought would have, number one, even knew what that was, and even more so ask me about it and what I thought about them getting into it. So Bitcoin, over just the last month alone, it's lost 23% of its value. who knows why it goes up? Who knows why it goes down? Like it's unregulated by the IRS and the I think that's me personally. Again, this is not. It's not. I don't know if it's factual out there. It's just my opinion, but I think that's a big allure to it. So who knows ultimately what it's going to do? I would just urge people to be careful with it. I'm 39 and I have very, very, very little, like 1% of my retirement assets in that type of stuff, just because I wanted to kind of see how it did. So for a 70-year-old, probably a little bit different story. You might want to rethink that. Right. I'm not saying it's wrong for you. I'm just saying be prepared for the volatility that would come along with that.
Well, I wanted to piggyback off of that.
Yeah.
Something that I think that people forget about, and I don't want us to sound, in 5 years, Bitcoin may be $2 million per coin, and we look like total idiots. I understand that that's on the table. But when we're dealing with people's retirement savings, their life savings, and it's critically important that this does not go away, people forget that during the Great Depression, it was illegal to own gold. It was illegal. You couldn't do it. If you owned gold, it was a problem. So things like this, Bitcoin, is one session of Congress at any given time. Basically what I'm saying is there's a huge legislative risk, not to mention the volatility, the systemic risk that's factored into it anyway. It's just like going from $96,000 per Bitcoin to $68,000 today per Bitcoin. So not only do you have that risk associated with it, but what happens if Congress comes out and says, Americans can't own this?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I think that's going to happen, but I am saying that can happen.
Or, the IRS is going to start getting their hands in the pot on it. Even though you're supposed to be, claiming your gains and stuff. Now, I know a lot of people that, I know that they don't. So
right.
It's a scary, scary thing.
And it's not, the reason I think it's so much not outside of the question is you have this currency that essentially part of its allure of what it's used for is the fact that, it's not necessarily traceable. If you're supposed to pay income taxes on gains now, but the only way they ask you, do you have cryptocurrency? And you have to answer the question truthfully. So
they ask you that on your tax return.
They ask you that on the tax return. And so you have this currency that is built for anonymity, so to speak, and built to not be traced. And is there a motive for the IRS to say we don't like that? Does it exist? What do you think the answer to that is?
Yeah.
So again, in 5 years we may look back at this and go, "Gosh, what dummies!" But it's a real possibility. I love this country. I wouldn't live anywhere else in any other time. But the IRS, if they can find a way to snuff out a loophole, they're going to do it.
It's just like a guy I met with the other day. I said, man, if Bitcoin did increase, if it doubled over the next 5 years, wouldn't that be a great thing? Yeah, man, it would be. I was like, well, what if it fell another 30% and half of your retirement assets are in it? That's something really to think about. So the last thing we want to talk about are commodities like silver and gold. Silver has had this huge, huge run up. It hung around anywhere from $20 to $40 an ounce forever, it seemed like. And then all of a sudden, it started just spiking. And it got up to over $110 an ounce. Now it's down to, I wrote it down, is down to about $80 an ounce as of the filming of this video. So, me personally, I had some silver. I liked opening my gun safe and seeing it. I thought that it was kind of cool, but I paid $35 an ounce for it. Well, I sold it at $67 an ounce, and then I was kicking myself because 2 days after that, that's when it popped up to $85. And it continued to go, and I remember sitting in bed every night telling my wife, we essentially, even though I locked in my gains, we lost money. The problem with that is just like having a stock. When's the right time to sell? Silver is probably, it's more out there than ever. It seems like everybody kind of gets their hands in it, and who knows what's causing it to go up, whether it be the AI data farms and needing silver for computers, or trade regulations on China and all that. I would just say be careful with it, with anything. Be very prudent with it. Don't go, if you've never had it before, it's probably not something you just want to walk off the gangplank and just fall into. Be careful.
Absolutely. And when you're dealing with a commodity, with a currency, Bitcoin is like a currency, silver, of course, a commodity, gold, any of these things, there's a goal to have a relatively stable valuation that adjusts with inflation is the part of the goal of how to set the value of these things. So you have to remember also, not only is there an inherent value for the commodity, but there's also an exchange rate. So it's so many ounces, per dollar, and it's based on the value of the dollar. So yes, there's been an increase in the valuation of silver, but there's also been a weakness in the value of the dollar, and so it's kind of been a perfect storm. So you have to be, the value of the dollar can and does fluctuate rapidly, and at any time, if the dollar rapidly becomes more valuable, something happens to affect the value of the dollar itself, that affects the value of the currencies and the commodities that you're exchanging it against. I don't know if I explained that very well.
Well, probably went over a lot of people's heads.
Maybe I got my point across.
If you want to know more about that, call and ask for me.
Yeah, just call.
Yeah. All right, well, we won't bore you anymore. Hope you enjoyed this content. Please, follow us on our YouTube channel, our Facebook page. This is where this stuff eventually goes. But if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call. Our phone number is 501-623-7066. We're doing some estate planning seminars that we would love to have you at. Just follow our social media pages, and you'll see the sign up links there. So anyway, hopefully you'll join us next month. Thank you.